How's that?
I can see it.
iOS 9, what's new? Sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll have to figure out what it is later. Again, I want to talk about iOS 9. And there are some good things about iOS 9 and not so good things. I'm not going to cover all the changes that are in iOS 9. I have a complete handout. It's 51 slides in length. All right, it will be available at the APCUG website, or you can email me and I'll send you a PDF or a outline or a PowerPoint copy of it. All right, yours for the asking. I'm certainly not going to cover everything on the 51 slides. I'll try to get through the majority of it without rushing and causing people to lose track of what I'm doing. There are some good things about iOS 9, and there's some things that aren't so good. If you cannot download iOS 9, I said this before, because you get a message that says you don't have enough room on your device, you need to email me, and I will send you a step-by-step of what to do to make room on your device. When you do email me, please tell me what kind of device you have so that I can tell you what steps to take. Almost everything in iOS 9 comes out in settings. I say almost everything, but again, I can't cover them all. And if you update your iPhone or your iPad and go to settings, you're going to see some of the new features, and that's where the majority of them come out. As far as I'm concerned, one of the best things that's happened with iOS 9 and the latest one is that you have now a search box in your settings app. So when you go to settings and that page comes up on your iPad, iPhone, if you scroll down so you can see the very first entry right above it is a search box. And if you can't remember exactly what you're looking for, type in some word that may take you to the right place in settings. A new thing that Apple came out with is for iPads that have cellular capabilities, or for iPhones only, you can change the SIM PIN, SIM, Subscriber's Identity Module. Each phone or iPad with a phone capability in the world has a SIM. That's how they tell who you are and why you're making call or where you're making calls, that kind of stuff. And why would you want to change the SIM PIN? Well, simply because the manufacturers of these SIM modules have a standard PIN number. And of course, people who steal phones understand this. So they steal your phone, they pull the SIM module out of your phone, they use it in their phone, and you get charged for, and you're responsible for anything that happens with that SIM. So to give them a little twist, you can go in now and you can change that PIN number that comes with the SIM module. And for AT&T and Verizon, it's one number, and for Sprint and T-Mobile, it's another number. And so if you're going to do this on your phone or your iPad with phone capabilities, then you need to go to settings, you need to go to cellular, and down where it says SIM PIN, you can see my big red arrow there. You are going to touch that. Notice the little right pointing arrow right here. That means that if you touch this line, there's another screen that's going to come up, and you can modify the SIM PIN. All right. And you do that by entering the default one and then putting in yours, repeating putting in yours a second time, and then now that SIM pin is the number that you've assigned to it. If you do that, every time you reboot your device, it's going to ask you for the SIM pin, so you type it in. So don't put in a number that you can't remember. And if you really are not concerned about that, this is not one of the big things you have to do. In addition to what's on this screen is a thing called Wi-Fi Assist. And Wi-Fi Assist has some good points to it and some bad points to it. What Wi-Fi Assist really does is it will turn on your data link for your phone or your tablet that has your iPad that has phone capabilities, so that you're receiving your cellular data instead of the Wi-Fi signal. Now, you have to understand that every time you go someplace with your phone or your iPad, they search for and use Wi-Fi if it's available. If it is not available, then they use the data link from the cell tower. And most of us have a limit to the data link we can use, and if you go over that limit on a monthly basis, then the carrier gets to charge you big bucks for going over the limit. So be aware that when you get your iOS 9, Wi-Fi Assist is turned on, and you need to go in and turn it off. You go to settings, you go to cellular, you scroll down past all of these apps you see over here that can be using your cellular data, and you can certainly turn these on or off as you see fit. And you go down to where you find Wi-Fi Assist, and like I say, because with iOS 9 it's turned on, you need to perhaps turn it off, especially if you have a low data point. It also suggests that you go in here and you check your statistics and make sure that you know what kind of current period and roaming and how many minutes you've been using and your cellular data usage. And you need to keep track of that. And when it's necessary, supposedly the best thing to do is, if your data link is refreshed on the third day of every month, and the third day of every month you go in and reset statistics, which takes these previous numbers back to 0, and then you can check on and find out how much data usage you are using. Because of Wi-Fi Assist, there is a couple in California who is suing Apple because they weren't told beforehand that if you have Wi-Fi Assist on and you got a weak Wi-Fi signal, that it's going to go to the data link and use some of the data that you are able to use on a monthly basis. Enough about cellular. I'm going to cover a couple more subjects as we go along that are for phones only. And you have to understand that in some cases, all right, I have a Generation 2 iPad mini, and I don't get some of the features of iOS 9, but the iPad Air 2 gets all the features. All right. Moving right along. Notifications. They've really done some work here in the notifications area. And of course, notifications has also widgets. So when you want to see notifications, you go off the screen on your device and you drag down and notification screens pop up. Well, if you go to settings and you go to notifications, then you can see that they've also given you in iOS 9 a sort order, either recent or manual. And if it's recent, of course, then it means the most recent thing that came up that you've set in notifications using these different apps down here to notify you. Notice badges, sounds, or banners. Alpha Bear is off. Android Wear, sounds, and banners. So this is where you set up your notifications, because you tap one of these lines and then set them up. But the sorting is done here, and you can have recent or manual. Manual removes the group app switch. Siri. Siri is a big change. And first off, they started by giving you 3 different accents: American, Australian, and British. So again, you can go to Settings, General, go down to Siri, and go to Siri Voice. And you can choose one of those 3 accents if you so desire. And Siri, when you bring it up on your iPad or your iPhone, it now has a friendly multicolored waveform, whatever that is, on the bottom of the screen to let you know that it's working. Siri's going to listen to your voice, and Siri is going to start to tie things together. This is one of the big changes of iOS 9. When you are connected to a power source, you can say, "Hey Siri," and it'll come on automatically. But you have to be connected to a power source. It won't do it when you're just running off the battery. And you can set that up by allowing it and turning it on. And here we have General, Siri, and then allow Hey Siri, you have to turn it on. Now, Siri also is going to work with Spotlight Search, and it's the 2 of them are working together to find out what you're doing, when you're doing it, why you're doing it, and tying all that together. And Siri is going to get to the point where, in fact, Siri or Spotlight Search is going to start giving you suggestions for apps. They're going to turn on your music as soon as you plug your headphones in. When you get ready to go into a Target store to shop and you have the Target app on your phone or your iPad, it's going to energize it and bring it up. And you're going to get to the point with the proactive assistant of Siri that you can say, "Hey Siri, send my sister a birthday card." And Siri's going to be able to do that because you tied all that information together. Your sister, as an example, is in your contact list, and also the information about her birth date is in there, and it all happens. So Siri is becoming more proactive, and so is Google, and so is Cortana with Windows 10. And they're all working together to gather more information about you and be more responsive to your needs and your wishes. And that's a good way of summing that up. Spotlight Search. When you bring up Spotlight Search, you'll notice right here at the top of the page, it's going to have Siri suggestions. And if you turn that on, Siri can suggest apps, people, locations, and other things even before you type in anything. What we have over on this side of this display, of course, is what Spotlight Search looks like in iOS 8, and here's what it looks like in iOS 9. And if the manufacturers of certain apps that are in the App Store write the software, then you can use Spotlight Search or Siri to get into the apps. Your contacts, your email, your calendars, your life. Next, we have handoff and suggestion apps. And these are two things that have come up with iOS 9. And you'll see them in general, handoff and suggestions. And this is where handoff is going to allow you to start something on your phone and finish it on your iPad if you have an iCloud account. And you can turn that behavior off right there. Suggested apps. This is the thing that says in the bottom of the corner, and I'll show you this in a minute, you have in the bottom corner of your lock screen, you have apps that are suggested because of your location, okay? If you have location turned on. But what you have to understand is this is going to work with apps that you've installed. This suggested apps software does not work with the apps that are supplied by Apple. And I have a list there on the bottom of the 25 different apps that Apple supplies. And at this point in time, you don't have any recourse but to take them. It's rumored on the internet that Apple's going to allow you to get rid of some of the apps that they supply. Another new thing is CarPlay. And this again is for your phone or your iPad that has phone capabilities. And this is where you can pair up your phone to the radio in your car so that when somebody phones you, instead of you having to use your hands to answer the phone or anything like that, CarPlay is going to take care of it for you. And the radio will go off and take over using the radio speakers for your phone. Accessibility. Now, accessibility really talks to things that iPads and iPhones can do so that, in fact, you're not limited to the capabilities just because you have some kind of limitation yourself. All right? And touch accommodations is one of those things that will allow you to turn on and adjust how long it takes for you to touch the screen or to tap the screen and have something happen that you want to have happen. Some people have problems with this, and so now Apple's giving you a way to adjust that. I think that's kind of neat myself. Additionally, as you can see on this list right here, we can go down to keyboard. And keyboard will now let you have either lowercase or uppercase keys showing on the keyboard as you're typing so that you know which one is going to show up wherever you're typing at. And I like that. That's really handy. You can turn that off if you want, but I have mine on my iPad. Next we have shake to undo. Every once in a while, I'm in a hurry and I forget and I delete a message or put it in the trash or put it in archives, a message that I got and I shouldn't have done that. Now you can shake your device and that message will come back in a little pop-up that says, do you want to undo that message? And you can say yes, and it'll bring it back up for you. This is not after you get out of mail. email, okay? You still have to be in email, and you have to do it within a reasonable amount of time after you've just deleted it by mistake. And you can also turn off vibrations on your device. Now, the vibrations on your device usually only is applicable to a phone. So you won't see that in most iPads. We have some new things with iOS 9 concerning restrictions. And as shown here on this view graph, the two notable ones are Apple Music Connect and the News, N-E-W-S, News app. The News app is also going to try to track you, and it's going to try to figure out what kind of news items you like and bring them up for you when you, in fact, open up the app. So you have restrictions in iOS 9 that you can go in and make, and here's what it looks like. Okay, you go to Settings, you go to General, you go down to Restrictions, and you turn it on or off, and you go all the way over to Restrictions. And for each one of the apps that you want to allow restrictions on, you can set those right here. And as you can see, Apple Music Connect I've turned off, Podcast I've turned off. This is actually not a screenshot of my iPad, but as an example. Another one of those iPhone only things is iPad and ID and passcode. No, Touch ID and passcode, excuse me. The Touch ID is also available on iPads, and so it's that thing where if you put your fingerprint into the iPad, then instead of typing in your passcode or something like that, you can use a Touch ID and your device will come up. I've used it for Google Wallet, which I have on my iPhone. And so we got some new switches where, as you can see them on this view graph over here, where you can do Apple Pay, or, and that used to be called Passbook, or iTunes and App Store. Use Touch ID to get into these places without having to put in some kind of password or passcode, okay? This is a phone display here. And if we go down one more, this is the iPad display without cellular, where in fact you can do passcode in settings, and then you can set up allow access when locked on certain things. Change the passcode, turn the passcode off. People that are using their devices without a passcode, I think, are taking a big chance. I have passcode on my iPad and my iPhone. And of course, the one on my iPhone is much longer than the one on my iPad. iOS 9 also gave us a bunch of information about the battery. And a lot of people were wondering, gee, why am I running out of battery? How come I've only been out here doing something and my battery shows 20%? Okay. The new battery menu will automatically enable low power mode in some devices, not all devices, okay? And so when you reach 20%, it starts turning some stuff off, and then when you reach 10%, it starts turning some more stuff off, and you can get more out of your battery, all right? Notice up here right next to the battery, either last 24 hours, last 7 days, they put a little clock. And if you go up there and touch on that, tap on that, then what shows up under all these different apps that are using your battery is two things. How much time each app has been running and how much time it's used in the background. because what you have to understand is there's some apps out there that are running in the background, updating themselves, keeping track of you, etc. And so this gives you a better idea of how to control the battery on your device and get the most for your time while you're running on battery. This is a good place to go check it out. Notice over here on iOS 8, all we had was the percentage, but iOS 9 added this little clock up here to give you 2 additional pieces of information, plus you have the standard percentage of what apps are using up your battery the most. Mail, contacts, and calendars. If you go down to Mail, Contacts, and Calendars and then scroll down, you'll see a new one called Contacts Found in Mail. And what they're really talking about is if somebody sends you an email and they're also on your contact list, they're going to tie these 2 things together. Somebody calls you and they're also on your contact list, or the number is in your email, it'll tie all this stuff together. It's looking for information like phone numbers and email addresses and tying them together, and then it turns around and makes a suggestion. So you can turn this on or turn this off. Another step in trying to tie things together to let you benefit. And again, you go into settings, you go into mail, contacts, and calendars, you go to the contacts section, and you find contacts found in email, and you can turn that on or off. Notice it is on by default. And over here on the other side of the screen that you're looking at, if you go down to calendars, not on the iPad, but only on the iPhones, you'll find events found in mail. And again, it's on by default, meaning when iOS 9 loaded into your device, it loaded this events found in mail, and it turned it on. And if you don't want it on, then you need to go in there and turn it off. One of the biggest changes that they made besides Siri was also to notes. And notes are now spread across and become more useful. I've already started using the notes capabilities in iOS 9, and they're significant. First off, you can set up by going to Settings, Notes, which is right under Mail, Contacts, and Calendars. And you can tell your device where you want the notes that you speak to in Siri, where you want them to show up at. All right. So if you're dictating a note and you want it to show up on your iPad, in your iCloud, on your iPhone, there's lots of different choices here, then this is where you go to take care of that. And this is what my screen looks like on my iPad for where do I want my notes to go to. And as you can see, I've got on my iPad selected, but I have a Gmail APCUG, I have an iCloud email, email with my user group in Leesburg, Florida here. I have and 2 personal emails, and I also have an iCloud email. So I have lots of choices of where I want my notes to go to if I'm in fact doing a dictation of my notes. multitasking gestures. If you wanted to use multitasking gestures, the first thing you have to do is go in and make sure it's on. Settings, generals, and gestures is a switch on or off. And the key to using multitasking features is you got to place at least 4 or even 5 fingers on the screen to make it work. The thing I use it for most is going between one app that I just had open and the other one that I just want to open. And I do that by using 4 or 5 fingers, and I move my hand up across the screen. So if I'm in a certain app and I want to go back to an app that I just used to have open a minute ago or 10 minutes ago or whatever, I can do the multitasking swipe instead of double pushing my home button and then picking the app that I want. And if I swipe to the left or the right, this allows quick movement between applications that are running at the same time. But again, the key is it's not 2 fingers, it's not 3 fingers, it's either 4 or 5 fingers on the screen. You can see an example of that right here. I'm switching between iCloud Drive and my home screen. And let me point out that these little red circles here with the numbers on them, these are called badges, okay? And so if you have a badge with one of your apps, then you need to find out what it's there. This one means there's 1 email that's unread. This one means there's 2 phone calls that have come in that you have not responded to. A lot of people don't know what those things are called, but yeah, they're called badges. The News app, again, is getting together and trying to give you more information in the context of what you're normally looking at when you go to the News app. So it builds a data bank of information about what you use. In Note apps, you can now add a photo to your note. You can add a map to your note. You can add web links to your note. And I have done this already. I have made a note and then taken a picture and filed the note away. I have gone to the maps and I have put in an address and looked it up on the maps, and I take a picture and make a note out of it. And then nowadays, instead of taking a piece of paper and making a list of what I need to get at the store, I whip out my phone and I go to Notes and I say, I want to make a list, and I go in and I start making a list of what I'm going shopping for. You're going to see this little camera thing down here on the new Notes in iOS 9.
Jerry, I'm going to give you about 4 more minutes.
Okay, and here's the little camera right here, and this is the one you use to make a checklist. And the checklist gives you a circle up here, and so you make each item a different thing on the checklist, and then when you do them, you check them off, and everything happens. On your iPhone, you can do sketches with your finger and draw circles and squares or whatever you want to do. It's very handy, okay? If you're doing notes on your device, these icons will show up on your keyboard, and they allow you to do the things I was just talking about. Here's the camera icon over here, and this is the iPad without 3D touch. All right. Check out opening a new formatting toolbar. Okay, you can add notes in a lot of different places. And what you do when you want to add a note is you got to go up here and touch this thing. Okay, and when you touch that thing, it brings up the things that you can do with whatever note you have or wherever you are. When you touch this, now you're going to see notes in the list that comes up. So when you touch this thing, this icon right here, on I don't care what screen you're on, when you touch this icon, or what app you're in, when you touch this icon, it's going to bring up another list of things that you can do, and notes is going to be there, so you can add notes wherever you are. Also, down here in the bottom, you're going to see a thing called Attachments Browser. And this is really handy because it takes whatever you're doing and puts it into notes, okay? Let me show you an example of this, and then I'm going to say again that everything that I have talked about and things that I've gone too fast through, okay, are in fact available. So you go to a web page like the APCUG web page, and you touch this thing up here, and here's the extra things you get. And you go to Notes, and you click on that, and that page is going to show up in Notes. The URL, the address for that page, and other contents that you have picked out will show up in Notes. So you want to go to you go to a web page on your device and you want to save it for later, Notes is the way to do it. Quickly, under the hood refinements, longer battery life. Apple promises that updates in the future will be smaller. iOS 9 is 1.3. Faster and more responsive because of cooling and what have you. Improved security with two-factor authentication or 6-digit passcodes, and I like iOS 9. I think it's great. Now I have a brand new 6S Plus iPhone, but my iPad 2 mini is generation 2. And if you're running iOS 8, you should be able to run iOS 9. And that's it. I'm sorry we had that technical difficulty to start with.
Well, it happens.
Fact of the matter is, I have lots of extras at the end of this handout. I'm not going to go through them now, but they're there for you, and it gives you some idea of other things you can do to make your iPad, iPhone work quicker.
Great. And remember that Jere's available for doing presentations at your local group. And so if you'd like to get in contact with him, go to the APCUG website, go to the Speakers Bureau, and see about scheduling for him. I want to thank you, Jere. And
my email address here is wrong. It should be apcug.org. Minich at apcug.org.